In this video, we will be having a non-toxic, friendly, calm, power scaling conversation on how Sanji stacks up against the rest of the supernova. And first off, I want to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, Andre, who gave me this idea. And it's a very interesting idea because I think it's more relevant than ever. To me, it made sense that Sanji was not a supernova when they were first introduced, but now, currently in the story, he stacks up against them in multiple ways. And before we get into this, I fully acknowledge that the supernova level is a pretty wide range of powers. But that's why we're going to be going through individually and comparing Sanji and seeing how he stacks up against each one of them overall. But I also believe that this supernova level, even at its floor, it kind of surpasses a level of power and notoriety in the world. Because when the supernova were first introduced, it was really a shift in perspective of how we looked at things. Pre-time skip, for most of the story, we were following the Straw Hats, our main cast, and seeing them doing all these crazy things in East Lobby, defeating Shichibukai. But then Sabaody came, and that's when Oda drastically shifted our perspective and told us, like, hey, the Straw Hats, what they've done, it's great and all, but the world is very big and the Straw Hats right now are not very strong compared to the rest. The first thing Oda does was introduce the supernova in Sabaody, and that was really our first wake-up call, because now you had this entire group of rookies that were comparable to the top two fighters of the Straw Hats and Luffy and Zorro. You even had Eustace Kid, who had an even higher bounty than Luffy. I still really want to see that explained. Like, what the hell did Kid do during his journey? I know he was ruthless and killed a lot of people, but he really must have killed a lot of people. But yeah, with the supernova, it was really eye-opening because now we had a group in the same generation as the Straw Hats that were comparable to the top two monsters of the Straw Hats. However, Sanji unfortunately was not included in that group, and I'm sure some of you would jump at this right now and be like,
oh, Lanchi over here couldn't even make the supernova.
But first of all, I think power-wise, Sanji did stack up and was comparable to the supernova even pre-time skip, and that's because I think he was comparable in strength to the two supernova in his crew. Sure, you could say Luffy and Zorro were stronger, but there wasn't really that big of a gap between them and Sanji in my opinion. Those three were always grouped together as the monster trio, fought the three strongest of every single enemy. So in my opinion, power-wise, Sanji wasn't really that far behind against some of the supernova. He might have even been stronger than some of them pre-time skip. But the main reason that Sanji was not included in the supernova was actually ironically part of the reason we really love this character. Because Sanji isn't like Luffy and Zorro with these crazy dreams of being the Pirate King, the world's strongest swordsman, that requires a lot of strength. At the end of the day, he's just a cook. He wants to find the all blue with a bunch of fish so he could cook it for people and for people to enjoy. But this also meant that Sanji didn't have to fight and showcase his strength and growth every single arc. So instead, we got a lot of the badass Mr. Prince moments of him showing his intelligence, his clutch gene. Those moments were the ones that really made Sanji's character stand out. But because they were so low-key, they probably really didn't get noticed by the world government. Like, those were iconic moments to us, but in the grand scheme of things, they probably got overlooked, and that resulted in Sanji having a much lower bounty. So by the time the Straw Hats get to Sabaody, his bounty is not comparable at all to the rest of the supernova. The lowest bounty amongst the supernova was Uroge at 120 million, and that was already damn near double of Sanji's. So Sanji's exclusion from the supernova wasn't really a factor of strength, it was a factor of notoriety. But currently now in the story, things are completely different because he's now Vinsmoke Sanji. And with his name alone, after Whole Cake Island, his bounty shot up to 330 million. So bounty wise and notoriety wise, he's comparable right now to the rest of the supernova. He has a higher bounty than some of the supernova already, like Zorro, Hawkins, Killer, and he's not far behind some of the other ones as well. So in terms of clout, he's already there. Like, if the supernova were recreated today, I think Sanji would definitely be in there, because not only does he now stack up in terms of clout, his strength also took a massive leap because of the raid suit. So now let's get to the fun part. Let's go through each and every supernova and stack up Sanji's power overall, not like an individual fight, his overall power against each of them, and see where we can place him within the supernova. This is gonna be a fun one for me, but the comments probably not gonna be as fun. Let's start with the easy one. We got Luffy. This one is no question. Luffy is the strongest supernova. He's pretty far ahead of most of them in my opinion, and he's also Sanji's captain. He is very clearly stronger than Sanji. But after Luffy, it kind of gets interesting because the next one we're gonna talk about is Kid. Now Kid, narrative-wise, you would really think he's clearly stronger than Sanji because throughout the story, Kid has always been compared as a rival to Luffy. He's also always been in that big three with Luffy and Law. Even recently in Udon, you saw that Luffy and Kid rivalry kind of reignited. But at the same time, as far as what we've seen from both Kid and Sanji, there's not enough information to really judge. Kid's powers we've barely seen too much of. Meanwhile, Raid Suit Sanji, we haven't seen its peak either. So we really have to judge this off the narratives and the little information that we have. So with Kid's powers, he has some sort of magnetic fruit. It's interesting, I find that it hasn't been revealed yet. So to me, that probably means that Kid is gonna get a lot more shine, probably in Wano, where he showcases a lot more of his power and what it's capable of. Because I'll be honest with you, Kid's devil fruit hasn't been that impressive to me. Sure, he landed a hit on Apu and made him bleed a little bit, but we've seen better attacks against Apu. And the only thing that Kid has showcased is the ability to collect a bunch of metals and create giant arms with them. I always bring up this idea of like, what if you put Eustace Kid in a rubber room of like absolute nothing? Is he just gonna get bodied? But Kid's powers definitely should have a lot more to them. A lot of people bring up the Magneto comparison. Maybe Kid is able to shift the magnetic fields and stuff like that. He could definitely do some crazy things. We just haven't seen much of it and haven't gotten a lot of explanation about it. So that means we really just have to judge him by his feats. And during the time skip, he did injure a sweet commander within Big Mom's territory and then later on like stole something and left. But besides that, he lost an arm against Shanks and then got waxed by Kaido. Now granted, those are two Yonko, so we can't count him as like L's or anything, but like he hasn't really done much else. Sanji, on the other hand, has started to showcase a little more in Wano right now. Snuck in between King and Queen and rescued Momonosuke, went kick to kick with King before getting essentially bird tackled by King, but also showed he was completely fine. So judging off of what we already know, I think you might even be able to put Sanji ahead, but that's not how the story works. I think we could definitely expect a lot more from Kid. I think in Wano right now, his main fight will be against Kaido, whereas Sanji, I think he most likely ends up fighting a commander. Both of them have a lot more to grow and a lot more to reveal as well, but because of Kid's role in the story and how he stacks up against Luffy, I'm gonna give him the edge right now. He also is noted to have Conqueror's Haki, and that I'm guessing is gonna become more than fodder control, so Kid gets the edge over Sanji right now. Next, we gotta talk about the other person that makes up the big three, and that is Law. Now Law, before Sanji got the raid suit, I think it was very clear he was stronger than Sanji. We just have to look at their interactions against Doflamingo where they both got messed up, but Law was able to do a lot more. But raid suit Sanji is definitely a different beast, so the playing field is definitely a little more even in my opinion. Again, it's kind of unclear because we don't know enough, but I personally lean more towards Law here because of how strong his fruit is. I'm also just not sure that even with the raid suit, Sanji is able to deal the amount of damage that Law did against Doflamingo. And that goes back to Law's devil fruit. Although he personally is not as durable as you would like, the amount of damage that he could do with something like Gamma Knife, where he can just destroy your internal organs, that is devastating. Another thing is a lot of people have brought up the idea that Law has gotten stronger as well, which would kind of make sense because he was pushed to the limits against Doflamingo. I was recently part of a top 30 power scaling stream on Sensei's channel, should be up by now, so go check that out. But I think it was Sage that brought up the idea that Law has grown, and he specifically brought up this panel where Law was transferring himself and the scabbards onto Onigashima, and that distance between the submarine and Onigashima is pretty big, so the room that he created had to have been pretty gigantic, and he does it pretty easily. I do think we've slept on Law a lot. I've definitely done this myself, mostly because of how much damage he took against Doflamingo. But when we consider Law's devil fruit and what he showcased with his Haki, and also the potential that he's also grown from his fight against Doflamingo, I think you have to put Law above Sanji right now. Next, let's get to a fun one I'm sure a lot of people would fully agree on, and that is Zorro versus Sanji. Now for me personally, Zorro has always been stronger than Sanji, but that's completely fine. Like, that shouldn't be the argument if you're a Sanji fan trying to argue against Zorro. Sanji is not a fighter. We mentioned this in the beginning where Sanji does not have this crazy dream of wanting to become the world's strongest swordsman, so he's not a maniac training each and every day to get stronger. Just the fact that he's already comparable in strength to Zorro while not having that crazy ambition is already pretty impressive. But if we're just comparing the two of them in terms of overall strength, I don't think there's a question here. Zorro has always focused more on strength, he's always trained more, he's always fought the second strongest of every single enemy group, and even in Wano right now, he also got a power up in Enma. So at the end of the day here, I think it's very clear that Zorro is also stronger than Sanji. But after that, now we could really have some fun because this is where I think Sanji has a case for for being stronger than a lot of the other supernova. Let's start with somebody who was pretty involved with Sanji, and that is Capone Beige. Now these two, they had a bit of an interaction in Zou, but that really wasn't a fight in any way. It was kind of a negotiation, and Sanji was just trying to protect the Straw Hats, so he wasn't really trying to fight or anything. Now in Whole Cake Island, both of them showcase a little bit of what they're capable of, but during that time Sanji didn't have his raid suit, and I really think it was Capone that got a lot more shine in terms of power. Now Capone's fruit is really interesting because by itself it is strong, especially because he could go into this Big Daddy mode of this giant ass castle. He was able to tank multiple hits from Big Mom in that form before he was like, oh damn, okay, this is a Yonko, this woman is crazy. But what really makes his fruit a lot stronger is the fact that he's able to essentially house people inside himself, and that allows them to like shoot all sorts of weapons and gunfire and cannons. He even has somebody use a sea stone spear, so it really makes his attacks very versatile. People could also just jump out and be their full-size self, and like he's had like cavalry come out of himself. So what really makes Capone strong is the rest of his crew. So that makes it interesting because we're kind of comparing like individual power here, and just in a one-on-one I think Sanji does get the advantage, but I don't think we could just fully neglect Capone's power of like including other people. But also like even if Capone is able to utilize his crew and have them inside of him, I'm still not sure that he's stronger than Sanji. Like sure, Capone definitely gets a lot stronger with different weapons and the rest of his crew, but how much firepower does he have with just basic weapons? And he does have a lot of durability as well with his Big Daddy form, but this is really a toss-up in my opinion. I'll probably give the edge to Sanji if I had to, but I'll be honest, that's probably just a Straw Hat bias for me. I do feel like by the end of Wano, Sanji will be pretty clearly stronger than Capone, because I personally believe that Sanji will bloom his armament haki, but for now I view them as kind of even, maybe the slightest edge to Sanji. Next, let's get into some supernova that are in Wano right now, starting with X Drake. Now X Drake, from what he's showcased so far, also not that impressive. We got him taking out a number, which Frankie was able to do. He clashed a bit with Apu, but wasn't able to really take him out. And then he got bodied by Queen. So honestly, I'm not really that impressed by X Drake so far. Now, he definitely has a lot more to showcase, but his Devil Fruit at the end of the day is just a Zoan. So it's not like a similar situation to Kid where he has some like unique ability that we haven't seen. It's mainly just gonna be another strength boost. But at the same time, we've already seen him in his hybrid form go at it. I'm not really sure how much more he can showcase to kind of elevate his strength. Don't get me wrong, he's definitely strong. He knows swordsmanship, he knows how to use axes, he's got an ancient Zoan. I'm just not sure he has another level that he can elevate himself to. Like currently, could you confidently say that he's a top tier Toby Roppo member? I personally can't even confidently say that he's like stronger than somebody like Who's Who or Sasaki. And even compared to somebody like Page 1, I can't confidently say that he's much stronger than him. And from what we saw with Page 1 versus Sanji, I think Sanji would have pretty easily won that fight. He definitely would have had to like try and fight really hard, but I don't think he would have really struggled. So using that logic, I do think we could put Sanji above X Drake. Now, I fully acknowledge I'm using a lot of very small scenes that don't have a lot of depth to them. These two did have a very quick clash in the Flower Capital, but like it really wasn't that much of a clash. Sanji wasn't in his raid suit. I know they kind of expanded on this in the anime, I think, but we can't really use that as canon material. But yeah, for now, I am gonna put Sanji above X Drake. And again, this is another case where by the end of Wano, I think Sanji is going to be clearly above X Drake as well. Because I personally believe that Sanji will fight and defeat Queen, the person that bodied X Drake. Granted, Who's Who was also there, so we can't really judge off of it. But for now, I'm putting Sanji above X Drake. Next up, we got to talk about Apu, who showcased a lot of highs and lows so far. He started off by slashing Zorro and then blowing up Luffy and knocking his ass out. So showcasing more of his Devil Fruit, but then also recently like holding off both Zorro and X Drake, but then in the recent chapter just getting absolutely bodied by Zorro. So I think this was really a case of like we haven't seen too much from Apu. So like Oda started him off with some really good feats of like what he was able to do with his Devil Fruit to kind of give us more information. And this again kind of ties back into what we mentioned in the beginning of like every single supernova is strong. But Apu, now that he's gotten a little more fleshed out and we've seen the highs and the lows, I still think he's a lower tiered supernova. Now I don't want to sleep on Apu again. I did that before and then he like knocked out Luffy. He does have an incredibly unique Devil Fruit where like it's hard to defend against even if you know its powers. Sure, you can like hold your ears and all that, but like how are you gonna fight back? attack. One interesting thing about it, if we think about it individually, is that Sanji does have like earmuffs, so if we're talking an individual fight, Sanji might easily win it. So overall strength of Apoo is very strong, but I think we learned a lot from what Zorro did to him last chapter, because although his fruit is very hard to defend against, he also has to like slap his head and beat his chest to make the attacks go. That means he can't really defend and attack at the same time. So if he's facing against somebody with incredible speed or power, he's probably easily defeated. So I think overall Apoo just has some major weaknesses to his game, and that's why I'm gonna put Sanji above him. Next, let's talk about Hawkins, who is a very interesting person, because Hawkins is pretty strong. He has his straw devil fruit where he could just sacrifice other people and not get hurt. He also has these tarot cards which are like completely unexpected, because like it can hurt himself but also fight back. There's a lot of unknown with those tarot cards. Maybe he has like a trump card that does a lot of damage, but at the same time this is a man that really judges his moves off of like percentages, so he without shame will run away when the odds are against him. Now in Wano so far he did get slashed up by Zorro, but again because of his fruit it didn't really matter. He did also get defeated by Law, but that fight was off paneled. I'm guessing Law probably snuck up on Hawkins after getting freed by X-Drake, because if you think about it, Hawkins would never put himself in a fight that's disadvantaged to him. So the only way to win against Hawkins without him running away is to sneak up on him. And I gotta say, like, Hawkins' power is very strong. I think power-wise, he's probably one of the stronger ones. But at the end of the day, his problem is that he's a tarot card simp and he doesn't like go against the odds. So while I can't confidently put Sanji above Hawkins, I also can't confidently put Hawkins above Sanji. So for this one, I'm gonna give an answer that's pretty fitting for Hawkins, and that is depending on his luck. Next, let's get to the last person that is in Wano right now, and that is Killer. Now, there's been a lot of debate on Killer because of the whole Killer and Zorro situation. Some people think he was kind of crazy. I initially thought that as well. So the Zorro low diff fight could have an asterisk on it. So a lot of people have made the counter argument that it was never stated that Killer was like mentally unstable or something. Now I will say, like, judging off of his appearance, you can't tell me that that man was completely mentally stable. But I will also say that you can't also just like say that Killer was out of his mind and wasn't himself, because like right now we're seeing he's completely fine again. So in terms of the Zorro and Killer fight, I think my interpretation of it is this: Killer definitely not in his best mental state, but he was still at his full power. So Zorro low diffing that fight still is a testament to Killer's strength and Zorro's strength, but I do think Killer could have done a lot better. It just wouldn't have made that much of a difference. So honestly, in my opinion, Killer is on the lower end of the Supernova as well. And for now, I'm gonna put Sanji above him. And then the last two we gotta talk about are two very unknown people in a Rogue and Jewelry Bonnie. Now Bonnie is like the main reason we can't talk about individual fights, because Sanji would lose. But Bonnie is also very interesting because I'm not sure like if she really is that strong like physically in terms of power. Her fruit is like a lot more catered to like sneaky missions and stuff like that. Like she was able to escape after being captured by a Kainu. She also snuck into Marijua. But in terms of fighting, she just really hasn't showcased too much of what her fruit is capable of. I don't think we should sleep on the attack power of her fruit, but in terms of just like power for fighting, I don't think Bonnie's power could exceed a level that surpasses Sanji. So for right now, I'm gonna put Sanji above Bonnie, but we really need to see more from Bonnie to judge. In a similar fashion, a Rogue is the same way. We've always thought Rogue is like one of the weaker Supernova because of his bounty. His devil fruit is also kind of weird where he needs to take damage to deal it. But then in Whole Cake Island, we found out he took out Snack, a former Sweet Commander. And like, sure, we don't know exactly how strong Snack is, but I think we could very clearly place him between Cracker and somebody like Oven and Daifuku and Perospero. And Perospero, Daifuku, and Oven are very strong already. Even in Whole Cake Island, Daifuku was giving Sanji some trouble. But again, Raid 2 Sanji is a different animal. And honestly, with this one, I really cannot give a concrete answer. Rogue is somebody I really think we can't sleep on. There's so much more to his story that we have to explore and learn about. So for this one, I'm gonna have to leave it at to be determined. But overall, those are my thoughts on how Sanji stacks up against the rest of the Supernova. I'm definitely very interested to hear all your thoughts on this, so definitely let me know in the comments. But just keep the conversations friendly. As always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please hit that like button. Helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. To keep up with this channel, you gotta hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notified. The King Pirates crew is now over 9,100 members. Now, I am taking a vacation very soon from December 15th to the 25th. I'm still not sure if I'm gonna be able to bulk up some videos beforehand for the missing time, but just a heads up, there might be some gap there. Also, in the description below, we got the King Pirates Discord. We have a lot of fun there. Come hang out. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. I'm DKing4, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.